everyone. I'm here tonight to tell you about some people that I recently met. Now, I have to insist that you keep this between us. I don't want this all over Sun City. Now, I know that you can keep a secret. One of the things you can bet on in Sun City is being able to keep a secret. So now that we have the ground rules laid, I feel much better. So you just relax. Oh, well, you're already relaxed. No, I'm the one that has to relax. Oh, but if I relax, I'm not going to remember what I want to tell you. And if I don't remember, and speaking of remembering, there were these apples. Yeah, apples. Now, there were these apples. They were large. Large and juicy. They were so juicy that you had to stand back away from yourselves or you wouldn't get all wet. Now, you couldn't eat these apples in an elevator because you'd never get out alive with people dripping all over. And you had to have a certain knife to make the very perfect slice to cut through the juice. And then you could sit back and say, ah. But the very strange thing about these apples was no one had ever heard of them. So every time someone mentioned the word apple, I waved my arm and I said, oh, I hope you've tasted a Java. Well, they would look to their left, and they would look to their right, and they would look over their shoulder, and they would go, no. Well, how is that possible, I would say. Well, where do they sell them, they would go. Well, right there in the supermarket, I insisted. Oh, that's not possible, they would say. Well, to get to the bottom of this mystery, the next time I had one, I picked one up and looked at the name on the tag, and it said Fuji. Well, how bizarre, I thought, and then I realized because of the letter J. Not many words have a letter J, and one had a V, and one had a U, and one had two A's, and one had two I's. Fuji, Java. How simple. I have trouble meeting people. People here are so very wonderful. Everyone nods and waves, and it's such a wonderful thing for people to do. And I respond in kind. But my problem is, I don't know who they are. And it's quite a good thing that people here don't hear very well, because, I'm always responding to see how they are, and I ask about their children and their dogs and their neighbors. And I'm so lucky, and I hold my breath that one of them doesn't say, well, I have no children, and my dog died last year, and I don't get along with my neighbor. So I say my blessings every day that I've gotten away with this. So now, I did go take a memory test last Tuesday. Now, you're going to tell me it was probably Wednesday, but I'm cleverer than you are, because I wrote it down and put it in my purse. Yes. Now, let me see, where is that darn purse? Now, I know it's somewhere. It's probably there, but I'll have to find it later. Now, but I took the test, and I sailed right through the questions. And I put on my coat, and I went into the parking lot until I heard the word stop. And I looked around, and they told me that the questions that I had taken were sample questions. And I had to start and take the test all over again. So I had to go back in, I had to take off my coat, readjust myself, go to the ladies' room, and start all over again. I'm not sure when the results are going to come in, but I guess pretty soon. Oh, but I have to cheer up. I've been invited to a big formal event next month. Now, my neighbor knows where it is, but heaven forbid she would tell me because she thinks I won't remember. Oh, I hope it's on the island. Oh, things on the island are so very elegant. Now, she suggested that I wear my pale blue cocktail dress with the sequins. Oh, no, I said, horrified. I wore that 4 years ago on that very hot Saturday night to the Navigators' 4th of July ball at the country club, with my Stuart Weitzman backless silver pumps, my long-tiered crystal earrings, and my diamond bracelet with the pearl clasp that I got on my honeymoon. Well, I remembered that. Well, I don't know why I'm talking about myself when I really came here to tell you about people that I met. So let me tell you about this one woman. But I have to warn you because she says some pretty nasty things about people. So don't take it out on me. I'm only the messenger. Now, this woman is very tall and very thin and has very thin lips and, you'll have to excuse me, wears polka dots in her hair. Well, when I asked her name, she said, they call me Dot. And then she proceeded to tell me about her name. She said, well, when I was born, my parents died very young, and I assumed that I was called Dorothy. But I'm so glad I'm not named Dorothy. I mean, most Dorothys are pretty bulbous. I mean, look at the number of letters in their name. They have 7 letters in their name with 2 big O's and a rather hefty D. And most Dorothys have big bosoms, and they tend to rest their eyeglass holders right on their chest pillows. Have you ever seen a Dorothy run quickly? Well, I haven't. I mean, carrying around those 7 letters, it makes them waddle in a not very feminine manner. Now, Dot is a name for a tall, thin person, because you don't need a fat D, because it's balanced off by a single T, which is not only tall, but very thin. Now, I like my name because it's short. There are not many names for girls with only 3 letters. Well, let's see. Well, there's Sue, but there's not a very distinctive sound in the name Sue. I mean, it's very soft and it gets lost in the atmosphere. Sue. Dot. Now, that's a name that you stand at attention and you pick up your head. But there is a name that really makes me wince, and that's Jan. It sounds like someone who has her foot caught in the doorway and has to go to the bathroom. Jan. I told you she was nasty. Well, anyway, I've heard my name used in many different ways. Now, I never worked for the DOT. You got that one right. I never worked for the DOT, but I did work for the Union Pacific Railroad in the dispatcher's department. And I was responsible for the train schedules, and I had to report any delays immediately. Well, inevitably, I would hear, is the 550 from Buffalo coming in on the dot? And they would always roll over laughing, or, is it on the spot, Dot? I used to wonder at their level of humor, but I'd answer back, on the dot. Now, you notice that I wear polka dots in my hair. Well, how many people can dress like their name? And polka dots are so very friendly. I mean, have you ever seen anyone frown at a polka dot? Now, it's quite extraordinary how ignorant many people are. They think that I'm Polish because polka goes with my name. Really. Now, if you ever have an extra T or an extra Y, please don't add it to my name because then I'll just get older and crazier. Dottie. Thank you. Now, this is something, because several years ago, people insisted that I was married, and I couldn't understand why. And then I heard them say the name .com. Well, this was quite absurd, and I kept telling him this really wasn't true, and I got some very strange responses. Well, just when I was getting used to that, they gave me a second married name, .org. Now, if that's not the ugliest name in the whole world, I don't know what is. So now I have 2 last names, each with 3 letters, neither one worthy of the first. So Dot said, that's the story of my name, and it's been a pleasure meeting you, and I hope to meet you again sometime. And she turned, and I saw her leave and say, and she turned and left, and then I said goodbye, and I said, nice meeting you. Thanks a lot, Dot. Now, there's someone else I want to tell you about. The last time I was in New York, at the corner in 54th and 4th, a long brick building cradled the hot dog stand. It had a pink canopy, canisters for mustard relish, sauerkraut and rolls. It had a tall bin for straws and a square one for napkins. Jack loved his hot dog stand and positioned it sharp at 11 o'clock each morning, bright-eyed, glasses cleaned, apron immaculate. Well, his trousers were a bit worn, threadbare to tell the truth, but they seemed to stand at attention nevertheless. Now, what made Jack's hot dog stand different from all others was it had no hot dogs. It was never meant to have hot dogs. Now, Shortly after 11 at each morning, Mr. Barker would come out of the Acme Insurance Company on his way to a meeting. They would each give each other a nod, a good morning filled the air, and off Mr. Barker would go. Not long after that, Mrs. Simpson would pass Jack on her way to the Farmers First Union to make her daily deposit. Ah, she would say as she danced into a full-blown weather alert, as though Jack hadn't been outdoors yet. Oh, Jack loved these, and he would give her a deep bow as she crossed the boulevard. Soon the lunch crowd would come, and they would go in and out in front of traffic, walking in front of the traffic as though their mere presence could stop anything big. Oh, Jack used to love this, and they all knew him, and a hi, Jack, hi, Jack, reverberated as they all waved. Oh, Jack busily waved back at everyone, making sure he missed no one. What a glorious time 12 o'clock was. Oh, and the kids loved to visit Jack because he always had a trick or a game. He would make his thumb disappear, and it would come out of nowhere, and they would shriek with laughter. Mama, Mama, they would say, where did his thumb go? He also had a deck of cards, and he was always able to pick the one card that they had chosen. Mama, Mama, how did he do that? Can Papa do it? Mama, Mama, tell us, their voices rising. Jack would stand there with such a smile. A little boy came by the other day, and he was carrying a football and had a jersey with the number 45 that was all muddy and gray. He was looking down at the ground, and Jack could see he had been crying and had a nose that was full and needed to be blown. Oh, he looked so very sad. Jack bent down and wiped away his tears. Not that it did any good, he was still crying. And he asked him what the matter was. And the boy said, all my friends have made the football team except me. And I hate everybody, and life is not fair. Well, Jack said, would you like a hot dog? And the boy said, no. And Jack said, it's a good thing you don't want a hot dog because I have no hot dogs in my hot dog stand. You know why I have no hot dogs in my hot dog stand? Because I have something better. Now, people imagine that I have them. So what I can offer you is imagination. Now, can you imagine what you might be able to do that you couldn't do if you made the team? No, the boy said, stomping down his foot. Well, I know you can't think of anything now, but maybe when you're walking home or when you get home, you might be able to think of something. Maybe you'd like to try out for the track team, or maybe you'd like to go fishing, or maybe you can think of something that you haven't even thought about before. So why don't you come back tomorrow, and maybe we can see if we can figure something out. You see, imagination is the most wonderful thing in the world. You can have things and do things and go places that you've never even dreamt about. Look at the bountiful life that I have had and the wonderful people whom I have met because of my hot dog stand. Now, you can imagine that I have hot dogs too, and I will imagine that you will be back tomorrow, and I will also imagine that we will become great new friends. So if you ever find yourself in New York on the corner of 54th and 4th, look for Jack. And if you see him, tell him Irene said hello.